Are you ready to switch things up? Get it? Do you get it? In less than 2 months, we're getting Nintendo's brand new gaming console and its launch title, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. So I'm here to get you all ahead of the curve. What's it gonna be like? What should you expect? What's new? What's the same? Where's the franchise going? Will this be a completely new era for Zelda games? Will there be fast travel? Will I have to memorize a bajillion songs to get everywhere? Is Link still left-handed like in the older games? Does he still have his ears pierced? And perhaps most importantly of all, what does it mean for the future of Nintendo? I'll be answering all these questions and more, so join me as we overanalyze anything and everything about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild in the story you never knew. Let's begin with the trailer that just came out a few days ago. Nintendo gave us a juicy little hint in the description of the video. Forget everything you know about the Legend of Zelda games. Forget everything. That means we should forget everything! It seems as if this is going to be different. So if you've successfully forgotten everything except for fine dining and breathing, let's get to some real analysis. By the way, if you haven't watched the trailer yet, what are you doing with your life? Go watch it! Links in the description down below. Right off the bat, we're getting something entirely new from a Zelda game. That's right, real voices! Oh lord, they're putting voice acting in Zelda! I knew you loved me, Miyamoto. But not everyone reacted so positively to this change. Gamers seem to have broken up into 3 camps. There's the hardcore Zelda purists that reacted like this.
How could they ruin Zelda? How could they ruin my favorite thing? Yeah!
Then there's the more casual Zelda fans. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And then there's all the people who are waiting for the game to come out before deciding, which actually sounds pretty reasonable now that I think about it. Point is, there's a reason Eiji Aonuma, the producer and manager of the Legend of Zelda series, decided to include voice acting. So let's hear him out before making any rash decisions. According to an interview with Aonuma and Polygon, the decision to add voice acting centers around how hard it can be to convey and create emotion through text. We get it, Aonuma. Sometimes things get lost in translation. It reminds me of the other day when I texted my dad, "You look like a delicious pancake." He thought I was calling him round and flat, but he was just covered in tasty maple syrup. One meaning is an insult, the other is a unique bedroom fantasy. But my dad doesn't know which way to take it because context is lost through text. You can relate, right? In the interview, Aonuma went on to say, "It's not that I made everything voiced, but I have these moments where I want to leave impressions on users. I add voice there." Based on Anuma's explanation, I think we'll find Breath of the Wild gives players a lot more of what experts call the feels than older Zelda games. Because of course, it's true. Text doesn't have the same impact as voice. After all, nonverbal communication like tone of voice and body language account for around 90% of communication, although that exact number is for a very specific situation. Anyway, that's another story. The point is that voiceover is a lot more emotionally charged than text could ever be, especially in a video game. Another thing worth noting is that only certain moments will be voiced, not everything. I think there's 2 reasons for this. One, just like using color for only 1 or 2 things in a black and white movie really emphasizes those 1 or 2 things, using voice for only a handful of moments will really accentuate those moments. And 2, it's cheaper. It costs a lot less to hire a few voice actors instead of a few dozen, especially if their scenes are pretty spread out. I know, I love Nintendo too, but they are a business, and I gotta calls it as I sees it. Which reminds me, if I see one more comment claiming that Pokemon having 2 versions wasn't at least partially for money, I'm gonna love the poop out of ya. For those of you that are skeptical about them adding voice acting, couldn't you feel the effects from just the trailer? Hearing Zelda's voice, seeing her cry, and hearing her despair. That one scene from the trailer affected me much more than any other scene in the entire franchise. Or, in the words of YRAG324, imagine that Zelda crying scene with only text. It would have had way less impact. You're so wise, YRAG324. So overall, I for one am looking forward to this edition in Breath of the Wild. I think, if done correctly, it could bring some real emotion into the Zelda franchise and could make us care more about secondary characters like Zelda even more. Plus, Link will still be mute, which in my opinion is a necessary and obvious choice for this particular series. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what you think about Anuma's decision to include voice acting. Now that we have that settled and you all obviously ended up agreeing with me, I think it's time to get you up to speed on the plot. Nintendo has been very hush-hush as usual, so we don't know much. But here's what we do know. Breath of the Wild begins with Link called from a long nap by a mysterious voice. Oh shit, here's one of those important voice acting moments already. The voice tells Link to wake up, you lazy bitch, everything's gone wrong and you gotta fix it. He awakens in a chamber called the Shrine of Resurrection. This shrine has a couple of chests with some clothes and a completely new item called the Sheikah Slate, which basically acts as an iPad. Link can bring up his map on it, scan it on weird artifacts, and do a bunch of other crazy stuff that Apple never thought of. Miyamoto, 1. Steve Jobs is dead. Sorry, Steve. I didn't mean to joke about you being super dead. Right, so, back to Link. Link leaves the shrine and runs into this old guy who tells Link that he's on the Great Plateau, the birthplace of Hyrule. Link then uses his iPad to scan a mystical rock, which makes a bunch of giant towers rise into the air all over the map. And we see Link on one of these towers in the newest trailer. Hold it! Hold it right there! Okay, let's look at this still for a second. Now, to me, this giant tower, which is known as a Resurrection Tower, screams fast travel station. Anyone who's ever played Assassin's Creed or Shadow of Mordor will remember a mechanic where giant structures became your fast travel waypoints. Normally, I wouldn't say that one tower in Zelda means it's a fast travel tower, but look in the background. There's another tower that looks basically identical to the one Link is standing on. And we know from the available gameplay that these towers spawned across the land at the beginning of Link's journey, and that when Link scans them, it gives him a map of the area surrounding the tower. If that isn't straight up copying Assassin's Creed, then my name isn't Treesicle. It actually isn't, by the way. It's Grant. That's a common misconception. But this still seems to be copying Assassin's Creed, damn it! So yes, from what I can tell, there will be fast travel, and you'll need to climb these giant towers to unlock each waypoint. Shouldn't be any problem since we now have footage of Link climbing up a giant cliff. Oh yes, and Link's ears are pierced. Cool. In my opinion, pierced ears match his well-tailored and oddly fashionable green tunic, gauntlet, and boot combo quite well. Oh, the tunic is blue now? Whatever. Let's get back to the plot. After reawakening the Resurrection Towers, the same mysterious voice that awoke Link tells him that he's been asleep for a century. So why was Link awakened? To save the world from a giant smoky pig thing referred to as Calamity Ganon, of course. Apparently, Mr. Calamity Ganon brought destruction to Hyrule 100 years ago when Link was starting his brief nap. This brings up a few questions. Why was Link put to sleep right when the world needed saving? How was Link able to sleep and not age for 100 years? And most importantly, where did he get those fabulous earrings? I'm afraid some questions will have to be answered post-launch. For now, the plot thickens as Hyrule Castle, the purest symbol in the land, has been able to contain the Calamity Ganon with its pureness, I guess. Seems strange, but I'll go with it. The castle can't contain the Calamity Ganon for much longer. So here is where we get Link's quest. He must go to Hyrule Castle and destroy the Calamity Ganon. So to sum it up, we have a pretty interesting storyline so far that gives us more questions than answers. Perfect. We do know that we have a world that was nearly destroyed 100 years ago on the brink of being destroyed forever, and that Link must save the world by conquering the Calamity Ganon. But we don't really know how this will be done. Now let's get to some speculation, because luckily Nintendo gave us a new trailer that contains a lot of information if we're smart enough to decode it. Remember back when Nintendo first let people play the demo of Breath of the Wild? They purposely took out all NPCs so we could get no closer to deciphering the plot. But this new trailer shows a bunch of different NPCs, and with them, we should be able to get at least some idea of what we have to do. Take that, Shigeru, you saucy minx! From the looks of things, Link will need to travel across the world in search of different peoples, and probably obtain certain powers or weapons from them. That, in turn, will help him defeat Calamity Ganon. Each of these different peoples seems to represent an element of nature. The Gorons represent the earth, the Shark Dudes represent water, Bird People represent air, shout out to Bird Person, rest in peace, and the Gerudo represent sexy women? I don't know, but the others make sense, okay? It seems as though regular people have pretty much died out, but these elemental beings were able to survive during the last 100 years. And now they're all in peril as the Calamity Ganon grows closer to breaking free. So my theory is that each group of people holds some special power or weapon necessary to either defeat Ganon or get to Hyrule Castle. Otherwise, Link could just go straight there. Bam! Logic! So Link must travel to many different lands and visit many different peoples in order to find the items needed to get to Ganon. And because this game is open world, it's possible that the items could be unlocked in any order. That'd be pretty cool. The other part of the plot that I'm less certain about, but still seems very likely, is that Zelda is going to have a much larger role to play in this game than in any other. She's not a damsel in distress this time. No, during the newest trailer, we see her many times out in the world with you. She might even become a companion of sorts at some point, especially since every Link has had a companion. But this Link doesn't seem to. So I really do think that Zelda is going to have some extra role that we haven't seen yet. Add in the fact that her one line in the trailer is, "Everything I've done up until now has been for nothing," and you've got pretty good evidence for a more active Zelda. What I'm gathering from that line in particular is that Zelda has been able to keep the Calamity Ganon at bay for the past 100 years while attempting to find a way to seal it forever. Then, during the plot of the game, the Calamity Ganon overpowers Hyrule Castle, leading to that line from Zelda. Besides, I find it hard to believe that the Calamity Ganon was trapped in Hyrule Castle because Hyrule Castle is a symbol of pureness. Zelda using her magic to trap it within the castle makes much more sense to me. So I'm thinking Zelda won't be able to keep the evil sealed, then the Calamity Ganon gets out, begins destroying the world, Zelda cries in Link's arms, then they have end of the world sexy time. Followed by Link saving the day by destroying whatever form the Calamity Ganon takes once it's breached the castle's walls. Oh yeah, but we won't really know for sure until the game is released because right now we can only explore a small part of the open world. Which brings to mind a few questions about the open worldiness of this new and improved Zelda game. Is this game going to be like an open world RPG? Should we expect one main quest with a bunch of other side quests that will help us grow stronger? At first, my answer was no, but now I'm not so sure. There's a few reasons for this. The first is actually really simple. Clothes. During the very first trailer of Breath of the Wild at E3 last year, Link was shown in at least 3 different outfits. And they don't really look like special tunics for various weather conditions. No, Link was shown in a full set of light armor. It seems that as we play through the game, Link can actually get armor upgrades that help him survive. That's not exactly normal for the Zelda games we know and love, but for an open world RPG, it would fit right in. Plus, based on gameplay that's been recently released, Link's minimap has multiple locations that are constantly being tracked, which probably indicates either different quests or different events or items needed. It really does look like Nintendo went all out in making this new Zelda a full-on open-world RPG. Items have durability and break down, food can be cooked and eaten to regain health, and there's very little instruction on where to go overall. Nintendo is still being super stingy about just how the questing in the game works, making sure to leave out all storyline pieces that are essential to the plot, which is understandable. But overall, the open-world aspect of Breath of the Wild makes it look more like a new Elder Scrolls game than a new Zelda game. I'm glad you brought up Elder Scrolls, Self, from 5 seconds ago, because it's the final piece of this analysis pie/puzzle, or pie for short. You may have heard that Skyrim is confirmed for the Switch. That's huge news, because Nintendo has been notorious for making systems that many third-party developers just didn't want to publish on. The news of Skyrim HD on the Switch, plus the huge list of third-party developers, that should be very interesting if you're a Nintendo fan. Hold that fact in your mind for a second. Now, we saw something else that's very interesting in the Switch reveal trailer. We saw a huge stadium filled with rabid fans cheering for a competitive video game. We saw esports. Yes, it was Splatoon, but it was still esports. Do you see what's happening here? Now add the final cherry on top. A new Zelda game, Breath of the Wild, that absolutely embraces open-world gameplay, a genre of gaming that Nintendo has never stepped foot in before. Do you see? Nintendo is changing. They're finally adapting to the times. Breath of the Wild is a symbol for the legendary gaming company, a symbol for them shedding their stubbornness and embracing the modern era. And my friends, it is a great sign for things to come. And that's the story. You never knew. Oh hey there, didn't realize you'd be in this outro. Well, since you're here, why don't you subscribe to the channel? It's free, and if you join the notification squad and hit that bell, you become 78% cooler. Fact. Want another fact? This Link video was the 7th story you never knew we ever made. The voiceover is horrible. The editing is horrible, but the script is fucking hilarious. Oh, and Zelda the story you never knew. Hope you liked the video. See you next time, and Link is right-handed.